there. There we go.
Are we on air?
Now we are. According to my screen, which God only knows.
Yes, it looks like we are on air. Yes, I can confirm that. Roger Houston, we have liftoff. All systems green.
Oh, there it is. Now I can get the link. Yay.
Okay.
All right, I'll throw that up on Twitter, and then we can get going on stuff. I knew I'd get there eventually. Oh, apparently it automatically does it. Okay, well, I went through all that for nothing. Fine. Oh, pop out chat. There we go. Okay. So I can close that. All right.
Yep, we got some chat going on. David's on there. He says hello.
Yeah, David. God, I can't believe I missed last week's gaming when Hostetter and everyone was actually there. That was a bummer.
Yeah, me and Hostetter and some rando guy played 18 Lilliput.
Nice. I was going to ask who was in on the third one on that.
It was some rando. I don't know who he was.
Rando? Is that a pug?
Just some dude who shows up at game night and may or may not ever see him again.
Yeah.
Pickup group.
That can happen. Fortunately, though, most of the people who do that haven't been too bad. I mean, occasionally you get kind of scary people who'll do that. So we've been somewhat fortunate. All right. I think I got everything ready on my end. You guys ready to go?
Let's rock and roll. I got the what do you call it? The sheet, the thing, the document. And yeah, let's go.
All right. Okay, so I'll give Joe his countdown just so when he edits, he feels like, everything was done right.
If that's all he listens to, I hope that's all he listens to.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. This is a podcast about gaming and told by gamers in mostly Central Iowa and Portland. So
can we have a little bit more enthusiasm with that, Andy?
For Portland, yeah, actually, Portland's pretty cool.
Okay.
Literally, I don't know. It's not cool like Iowa, but what do you do?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Anyway, so as you can see, I am Andrew Dennison. I am taking over hosting duties for Joe Salin. For at least this week and maybe a few weeks. He just has some, rough conflicting stuff that's going on in his life. He'll be in and out. And then once things settle down for him, he'll be back running the full show so that I don't have to be responsible anymore and can just try to derail everything like normal. Because if I do that as the host, God will be here for hours. So anyway, before we get started on our normal format of reviewing games, a topic in the board game community, and hyping some games we're looking forward to, I'd just like to give a shout out to our sponsors, Game Surplus. Go check them out. I believe they have a holiday sale going on or will soon.
Let's check it out.
Yeah, no, I think they did. I saw him announce it a while back, and orders were pouring in like crazy. So that is awesome. But check out Game Surplus, especially now after the Essen season. They are going to be getting in a lot of those hard to find Essen games before almost anyone usually gets them in. So they are the place to check out for those. You'll also get them in a good, timely manner. And every time I've ordered a game from them, it's been wrapped nicely, it's sealed, secured, and it gets there in a good, timely fashion. So go check out Game Surplus, your friendly online sort of not local game store. But go check them out because they're awesome. Carmen's
Elaine signed my last invoice. I felt special.
Oh, did you see what Carmen was doing when they did the Captains of the Gulf thing?
No, what is he doing?
He's writing a handwritten personal note to go with each one.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I think I heard, was it Clay did that for one of his games when it came out? And then he saw how many pre-orders he had in the second game, and he just started apologizing to people because he's like, I can't do
My
it.
hand hurts.
I can't do it.
love you, but no.
It's just, I can't do it anymore. Well, I got too many. But
It's a
yeah,
rubber stamp. I can't
Yeah,
even do this anymore.
yeah, we're done. We'll do that. Yeah, but seriously, I've noticed he's starting to get in some of those Essen games. So if you want to go check those out at Game Surplus. So what we're going to do here in this episode is we'll start off with our board game reviews as they are. I'm going to review one, and then TC and Trent, I believe you guys are doing a double review together, right?
Yeah, I think so.
It sounds like we were rather obsessed for the past 2 weeks with something. I can't imagine what it could be.
Yeah, 2 to 3 people obsessed over certain games in this podcast would be unprecedented.
I know. I was so funny because I was talking to say, "Hey Trent, yeah, we think we can do this again?" He's like, "Yeah, I've been playing this like nonstop for 2 weeks." I'm like, "Cool, so have I. We're on."
All right. So what we'll do then is I'll go ahead and do mine quick and get it out of the way, and then I'll give the floor to you guys then. Yeah, and then I get a chance to rest before the meet. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and review and discuss The Estates, which is Capstone Games' newest release. Well, not newest now. I think he had another one. But newest as of Essen. So The Estates is Neue Heime 2.0 for those that may have heard of it through that. The Estates is an auction bidding game. It's very quick. It can play 30 minutes in one game. You could play multiple games back to back if you want kind of a longer, more deep experience. So the way the Estates works is you have a board, you're putting out these roofs on it, you're putting out these blocks on it. You have a few other special pieces that have some, special abilities. Now, the thing that makes Estates kind of fun too is the way the auction works. So you pick a piece, you put it up for auction. It's a once around auction, and then basically you have to decide whether you're going to pay the bid to the highest bidder, and then you place that piece out there, or if you're going to take that money and they get to place that piece out there. There's cubes. They range from like 1 to 6. You can stack these to get more points. Now, the fun with this is whoever has the color that they're on the hook for, the highest, they get all those points. So let's say TC, you put down a red 6, and I then turn around and put down a blue 3. Blue gets 9 points now. It's not 6 to you and 3 to me. It's all the points for me. And so that can be done as well. The round or game will be over when you complete 2 out of the 3 rows. Now, the other thing that makes this really, really fun is any rows that are completed rows score positive points. However, if a row is not completed meaning it doesn't have all the spaces filled with cubes and there's not roofs on all of them, those are negative points.
Did you mention you can extend that row if you're a jerk?
Kind of the special ability is you can extend or shorten a row. You can do the mayor and double a row, both positive or negatives. You can just be like, oh, look, I make everyone miserable if I put the mayor there, but me, yeah, let's do that. So there's all of that. So there's a lot of kind of interesting strategy in this game when you're trying to figure out what to put where and all of that. There's a lot of kind of deeper stuff going on here. So there are some people I know that have played it once or twice and just claimed it's too swingy and they don't like it. I don't think it's swingy when you know what you're doing with it. The games I've played with it after the first game or two, I felt very in control of what I'm trying to accomplish. Now, players may stop me from doing that, but that's not swingy. They know what I'm trying to do, and they're putting a kibosh on that right now. So I think if you can kind of see a little deeper into the game of how these shifting alliances work, because, if you put a cube in a row and then somebody else puts a cube in that row, you guys might have some incentive to now work together. However, everyone else now has an incentive to screw you over, which can easily happen. But some people will play the game just always doing the best move for themselves, which is a way you can play the game. It's perfectly valid. But what could be particularly fun is a situation like, let's say Trent's on the hook for the color red on everything. And let's say I put up a red 1. Well, that's the highest one that can come up. What can make that particularly juicy for me is, let's say there's a situation where there's a stack of blocks, a 6, a 4, and a 2 sitting in a row that is pretty much guaranteed to be negative points. Trent knows then if he allows me to place that 1, he's doomed. So how much is it worth to him to stop me? Or how much is it worth to me to place that 1 cube in that negative row? So that's just an example of one of the tricks you can use in this game to really mess with people. A perfectly valid strategy in the estates is to not win any initial bids on any colors. Therefore, you will actually score no positive points in a round. And then just make sure nobody else is above 0. Just make sure everybody's negative and you can win with 0 points. You can actually win with negative points.
Yeah, we have the most negative point. Yep, that happened.
Yep.
Yes, it happened. Yep.
Yep. And so basically, this is probably the meanest auction game I've ever played. Like, there's very much potential for shifting alliances, some kicking in the teeth, some doing awful things to each other, all kinds of stuff in the estates. I highly recommend it as long as you're okay with games that can be a little bit on the nasty side. If that's not something you're into, you might want to steer clear of this one. But if you like a tight economy, like brutal auction game that has some depth into what you do when you win those auctions, then the Estates is definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, I don't, the term swingy it just encompasses so much stuff. And I agree. I wouldn't call this game swingy. It's really an open-ended game. You can play it how you want to. And I've played this game a few times, and I think it's part of their Simply Complex line that there's another game that came out that I played where you build with blocks. God, what was that game called?
The Climbers.
The Climbers, yeah. But this one, if you really want to figure out, if you're playing with some people and you want to really know what those people are like, break out the Estates, because this game can be played like, we can all work together and get some points and do that. But if it's so open to backstabbing and incredible moves. And one of my favorite things about this game is I love, much like Flow of History, I love closed economy games, right? Mm-hmm. Those are the best because what you have is what you got, and it's going to be shifting to whoever. And stockpiling money gives you power, but if you don't use it, you're going to get behind. This one has the added incentive of, what was it? We just bury it. It's what's that mechanic called? You just like, yep, I'm embezzling. You're embezzling. Yeah, it's like, boom, I'm embezzling $1 million. And that is permanently out. And you're making this really tight pool of money even tighter, right? And like once one person starts embezzling, like everyone's on. Like, oh, I'm embezzling too. I'm embezzling too. I'm embezzling too. And the fact that you can build over people's blocks, but you still have to complete it with a roof, and then you have to make sure that row's complete so it doesn't score you negative points. Mm-hmm. Oh man, you can just get the rug swept out of you so quick and so easily and so deliciously fun. It's every game of this, the table has just completely lost it. It's been hilarious.
The two things I've noticed I really start enjoying doing in this game is there's a few spaces on the board where you can only put one level of block, right? Mm-hmm. So you can't stack them. So you can put a 6 there, and that 6 is going to be yours.
Yeah.
There was kind of a meta in our group around whoever put that 6 in like that first row that has that spot in it, then everyone else would try not to allow that to score immediately.
Oh, heck yeah, man. That was I threw that one token where you can move the thing out by 3. I'm like, I'm bidding on this, and guess where it's going? We're going to knock this thing as far back as possible.
Yeah. What I started doing then, or what I tried to start doing, was winning. Once somebody had established which color they were, I started auctioning their blocks and paying them for it. And they're like, why are you paying me to put this block out? And then I put it in that row.
Yeah.
I basically forced them to start helping me. Or the absolute best move is, in my opinion, the one that's just sweet, is when you pick like that one piece that will either destroy somebody or help them, and just look at them and go, you better bid well.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, my only complaint about this game, I could talk about how great the Kickstarters were on this, because the Kickstarter was basically at one bid level, you bid it, you got the game, right? And
Pretty much,
there was like no need, like Fireball Island. Goodness gracious, I didn't even want to get that thing because of all the tiers and all the extra stuff, and I just got out of control. But the Estates was a Kickstarter done right, where it was to fund the game so it could get out on market, and it was like one version, and you got it at a discount. Perfect. Mm-hmm. But my one complaint is it's really, really, really hard to see the one where you only build the one block at, right? It's the one game, like I think it's the first or second game I played, we like built that thing up to 3, and we didn't even catch it until the end. We're like, oh, guess what, guys? This shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, that happened like once or twice to us. Once you've played it a couple times, it kind of becomes intuitive. But yeah, the first couple times you really have to watch that.
And I think the game we had was the store rental copy. So we just like the guy who owned the copy, who ran the store, got like some neon little masking tape or something to make it really stick out, which is fine for a rental game because it was going to get trashed anyway. But that's my only serious complaint, is that it was just something easy to miss.
Yeah. No, everything else was pretty solid. Trent, you have anything to add on that?
No, it's a really good game. It's well worth picking up if you like auctions at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometime we haven't yet tried the suggested variant where you play 3 games in a row and total up the scores at the end. Except that the fun is between the games, you don't reset the money.
Ooh, that's like getting in a vice grip, man.
Right, and so like there's then it becomes an active strategy to try to like throw around, but just accumulate crap tons of cash for the next one.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, yeah, you guys should go check this one out. It's definitely worth it. One of the best auction games I've ever played.
And how much does this go for? It's not that much.
It's not bad. It's like it's all nice wooden components, silk screened. Like, yeah,
$45 for mine at retail, and I thought I was like, wow, that's a pretty good price for this type of game. For this game,
yeah. No, Clay's been pretty good about keeping his prices like pretty competitive compared to like where some of them are going these days. Yeah, but no, go check it out. So up next, we're going to have a review by TC and Trent together, a game that if you have not seen all over Twitter, where have you been? With a little bit of a fun, what was it? I don't know, marketing screw up, if you want to call that.
Yeah.
So
I've yet to run across it personally or with the events I've run, but supposedly they're out there and it hasn't been entertaining.
Well, the best one is when they ask to send it back, and they're like, "Nobody's gonna do that now."
They're like a collector's item now. It's like, I got a deck that won't even. But hey, I'm gonna let Trent's so good at explaining games. We're gonna pass this off to him. I'm just gonna make some color commentary here.
All right, TC and I are going to talk about Keyforge. Keyforge is a new game from Fantasy Flight Games. It's designed by Richard Garfield, who all I got to say about him is he's designed Netrunner and Magic, and I don't really need to say anything else. He's pretty much about as good as a collectible card game person as you can imagine. Keyforge is a collectible card game, but it's not in the way that everybody thinks it is. This does it a little bit different. Rather than buying booster packs with individual cards and then you take the cards home and you try to build a deck on your own out of it, the collectible aspect of this is you buy full decks. And so how does that work? How can you possibly buy a full deck and not have it turn into something where you're customizing? When you buy a deck, it literally has a unique back on it that's on the no other back of any other deck in existence. Every deck ever printed of Keyforge is unique. It has a unique back on every card in it, and every front has a unique little bit that says the name of the deck on it. Every deck has a unique name. Uses this weird name generator that comes up with some of the weirdest, strangest deck names. They're just odd deck names, but they're fun. It's fun to see the deck names. They're just weird. Like, I'll grab one here. I've got one right here. I'll read one to you. This one is Stemmenkar, the Flexinator Mentor.
My personal favorite is She Who Advocates for Greed.
Yeah, I mean, they're just all kinds of random names like that. So the game you have a deck. Everybody has a deck of 36 cards. So you sit down at a table, you have these 36 cards. Your goal in the game is to forge 3 keys. And the main currency in the game is called amber, and literally it looks like little pieces of amber. And at the start of your turn, if you have 6 amber, you forge a key. So the way that that's represented is these 3 cardboard tokens. 3 of them have kind of a blank side, or they all have a blank side and they all have a colorful side. So when you forge a key, you discard 6 amber, flip a key over. It's on the colorful side. As soon as you have 3 on the colorful side, you win. You're the winner. So your deck consists of 36 cards, and that's made up of 12 cards each from 3 different houses. And what houses are is they're basically kind of the equivalent of colors in Magic. We've kind of matched them to colors in Magic sort of tentatively, but like if you like to play red in Magic, there's a house for you. And so on. I mean, they're kind of different play styles. So every deck has some combination of 3 of these. In this game, there's no real resources, though, for playing the cards. At the start of your turn, after whether you can forge a key or not, you move on to the next step, which is you choose one of those 3 houses. And the way that works is, for the rest of the turn, you can just play cards from your hand of that house for free. There's no casting costs. There's no anything. Any guys you already have in play from that house, you can use. Guys that are not from that house, 99% of the time you can't use them. Cards that you've already played from that other houses can't be used. There are a few exceptions, this being a card game of this type. There's always a few exceptions to every rule, but in general, you can only use the house you declared. You can only play cards from the house you declared and use cards from the house you declared. For the most part, you're just putting out guys in this long line on the table. It's the battle line. Whenever you bring out a guy, it goes on one end of the battle line or another. Unlike most games, when you bring a guy out in this game, it comes into play generally tapped. And then at the end of your turn is when your untap is. So a lot of games you untap at the start of your turn. This one you untap at the end of your turn. Anyway, it's a little bit different. So you just go back and forth, back and forth. Your cards generate amber. There's a lot of little strategic decisions in it, but on your turn, generally all the guys you have out in play can either fight with the guys that your opponent has in play, or you can tap them to reap, which usually means you gain an amber. There are other ways to gain amber, but that's one of the big ones. And so basically, it's honestly a race to 18 amber is what it is. And you're killing off each other's guys and back and forth. You don't have to worry about casting costs or anything. There's no mana screw as there is in Magic.
There's no decking.
There's no decking. If you get through your deck, you just reshuffle it and reshuffle your discard pile and it goes back in. There is some ability a little bit to manipulate your deck with a few houses. Like you can purge some of the cards out of your deck and make it thinner. There's a deck I've seen a couple of times locally here that likes to purge cards a lot. And it gets a deck down. I've seen it get down to about 11 cards. Is his whole deck.
Wow.
Anyway, yeah, it's different. But I mean, the 7 houses have enough variety that there's all kinds of different things going on. The game plays really quickly once you've learned it. The first couple of games are kind of slow, but they get faster and faster and faster, and you're cranking out games in 20 minutes. It's not a very long playing game, but there is a lot of interesting choices, especially given that you have to choose a house. And that often makes you spend turns feeling like you're not doing very much so you can gear up for the next turn where you can feel like you're doing a lot more. It has that kind of ebb and flow to it. I just really find this game fun. My 2 sons love it. My daughter and my wife are kind of starting to get into it too. We have several decks floating around the house. I can't speak highly enough of this. It was a good game design, and then the fact that the way they did the unique decks is just a genius idea. Yeah, and I gotta give Fantasy Flight all the credit in the world for not only conceiving of the idea and working it out, but making it actually work in terms of printing all the unique decks. Really good idea, and I think this game will last. I really do.
Yeah,
Keyforge.
This, we throw around terms like innovation and we went different games and all that. Man, Fantasy Flight just in terms of what they did with this to make it work, the design, the game design on this, the implementation of the software to make this work, the implementation of how to print these out, and to do all that and keep these decks playable and be at a $10 price point. I think that breaks down to like 23 cents a card, roughly. That is amazing. And I mean, I would just love to see a documentary on how this was designed, how they implemented it, how they came up with the random name generators, how they made everything unique. It's a bold approach, and it is executed really, really well. When this came out at Gen Con, I know you missed out on you were like, oh, I missed out on my 2 decks because you're at the Fantasy Flight event.
Yeah, but, I walked out. I was at the Fantasy Flight event where they handed out 2 decks for free to all the attendees, and I walked out about 30 seconds before they handed them out.
Oh.
Yeah, and and then the advanced word was we don't know. I mean, people walked out with 2 decks, and they're like, well, they're playable. We don't know. We don't know how they're going to do these things, and it was like this weird. It's like this weird wait and see. It's like we know what they want to do, but we don't know if they're going to be able to execute it, and so it's come out. I've run the pre-launch event, and then I helped run the launch event at our local game store, and this thing flew off the shelves. You can't find starter boxes anymore. People are picking up decks, and unfortunately, I think a lot of people are picking up these decks because now they're like, there's like this 4 horsemen combo that everybody's like flipping out about, like, oh, it's like this powerful combination, which I think is really going to be funny down the road because we have not seen how they're going to implement this app, right? We got the beta version of it, and you can like Trent said, you can like beep, scan it, and it registers your deck. Now, my question is, if somebody's going to spend $2,000, I mean, there was like I went on eBay just to just freaking look at this thing up, but there's like a pair of 4 horsemen deck that went for like $2,000 some odd dollars.
Yeah, it has 2 sets of the 4 horsemen in it.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
Yeah, you see, it's sold. I was like, holy, so people are like just buying these random decks looking for the horseman to turn a profit on it without understanding how this app's going to work. And my feeling is the way this app's going to work is that when you register the deck, you're going to register your wins and losses on that particular deck, right?
Like in organized play, when you're playing like an official FFG event, you will, yeah.
And so if they're playing this deck at an organized event, and they're just like rolling everyone with it's like, check this out, I got like 27 wins and 2 losses. I think that app's going to generate, like, if you're going to play it, you're going to have to take this many chains to play it with this win-loss ratio. And I think that's going to be permanently attached to that deck since you scanned it in. So the people who are paying like thousands of dollars for these things, they're going to be like unbelievably good. They will be at first, and then they'll start getting better and better and better. And they'll start getting more penalized in organized play. And then all of a sudden, okay, well, I'm going to flip this thing, right, to make money. But all that score is permanently attached to that deck that you scanned it in. So the value of this thing is going to be really interesting to watch, and because I knew a meta. I mean, Trent, we knew a meta was going to come up on this, and they're going to find out somehow to make money. I mean, like, oh, someone's going to work out like valuable decks, but I think to have it built in, there's going to be a way to control that. So these decks that are going for lots of money now aren't going to be worth that much down the road.
I don't know how this game is going to evolve. I will say this, and I will say this, having played this a ton at my house, and we played a lot of games of this, and I played it with a few other people in the local area as well. Different people, depending on their play styles, gravitate to different houses and can play them better than others. I have a deck that I feel really confident with, and I play well, and like other people play it and just
stink.
And then there's other decks I see people playing well, and if I try to play something similar, I stink. So, and I think that there's also a lot of value in getting a deck and playing it to death. Playing over and over and over so you know cold what's in that deck. The deck I am really good at is Shadows, Brobnar, and Sanctum. And the Shadows has three of these guys called Urchins in it, and also has a guy named Fagin in it. So I call it the All-Over Twist deck. That's not actually the name on the back of the card, but that's what I call it. And I'm really good at playing it. I know exactly. I've got it down. I played a guy locally that like I know, not in my family, and he's just like, the deck seems broken, and I don't think it is because I've watched my son play with it, and he doesn't know what he's doing, and like it doesn't go very well. He has another deck, and he's creamed me with it. So I think a lot of it has to do with play style. It's a really well-designed game. Not just the gimmick of the unique decks. I think it's a really well-designed game.
Yeah, just in terms of the design itself, there's there's at least 3 things that I've noticed while playing it, and especially running these events and teaching and watching people who play the game. A large part of these people are people who are like playing other card games like Magic and other LCGs. But the things that this game does that seems to appeal to people who used to play Magic and don't like it anymore is the fact that you're not directly attacking someone anymore. You're accumulating amber to forge keys. So you're not, when you're getting hosed, you don't feel like you're just getting personally attacked over and over and over and over and just getting beat into oblivion. You're generating resources or denying resources. And I think that's an important thing because, you know, people who play Magic you can take that kind of personally. It's like you're just hitting me over for damage. That kind of. The second thing this thing does is that you draw your cards at the end of the turn, so you can actually think about your next play before your turn starts. Right, so you're not drawing your cards at the beginning of the turn and just sitting there thinking about how to execute what you have. You have already drawn your cards, and you have like the entire other person's turn to figure out how to play these things. And I love the fact that there's no cost of playing cards other than you just declare the house. That is really cool because you're not like, well, I got to do this and tap my land and all this to get this thing out. No, you're like, you know what? I just drew a whole bunch of Brobnar. Guess what? House Brobnar. Right? And when you play a Brobnar,
that happens sometimes. And there's other turns you have to sit down and really think about it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's not real clear what you should choose. Yeah.
Yeah, you have like your whole other player's turn to think about it and then see what they're doing to try to react. Because one of the things we found out really quick playing this is that if you let someone get out of control and don't attack and let them have like a whole flanks of creatures, you've lost. It's just a matter of time. Now, there's a certain strategy you can get around if you have the right card, like wipe the board or stun everything. But it's all about the choices are really juicy because you're like, okay, do I get a bunch of stuff out to control this guy's out of control monster thing? I mean, or do I like tap for Ember or, you know, I don't know what kind of, you know, I've looked at this card deck, so I kind of know what's in that thing maybe. But I think my favorite way of playing this is just going to be the blind open and just going for it. Because you have no idea what your opponent's going to throw at you. And I think that's a larger part of appeal for this game.
Yep, I agree.
So one thing I'm kind of curious about is, do you think they're marketing this at the kind of people who like the idea of playing Magic, but maybe not the business model of Magic?
I think it's marketed at people that like the idea of sitting down with the deck of cards, and it's like everybody you play against is doing something a little different, but they don't want to bother with the deck construction themselves.
Yeah, or the going to the store and be like, I need 3 of this card, 4 of this card, and that's $500.
Yeah. what I've noticed, and I think this is, I mean, I don't want to like just start gushing like incessantly over it, but I think part of the brilliance of the way they had this thing going is that it's an also game, right? It's like, okay, you can still be into Magic and spend like your bazillions of dollars to get your deck you want, but you can also play this. You know, I can play Arkham Horror and buy every freaking single card to Arkham Horror, the card game, and still be able to play Keyforge. I can
buy the deck instead.
Yeah, just buy the deck and go. People like, or I could, you know, I was afraid like, you know, I'm doing Arkham Horror and Legend of the Five Rings. If I do Keyforge, that might break the budget. But here it's like, okay, you know, you buy a deck and you go and you play, and part of the insidious thing about this is you'll be playing, right? You're like playing, and you're having a good time, and you're looking like, man, there's another deck I can buy there. I wonder how that one plays. Hey, you got $10 on you? Yeah, I do. Let's go pick up another deck right quick and just throw it open and see what's in it and just go.
Yeah. It still has that like crack approach, but not quite as deadly as the Magic crack.
Because we're still opening up the box, because when you open the box before you even break the seal and see what you can see what's in that deck. So we open it up before we break it. We're like, oh, look at all these stars in here. Oh, it's got all these rares. It's got these 3 houses. Oh, look, I know what that card. Oh, I've never seen that card before. Oh, I can't wait to open this up and see how all this thing works out. And then you can still invest the time to learn it, and you're gonna be playing it like 5 or 6 times. It's a really clever way, because I think Fantasy Flight knew that there's, at this point, the collectible card game market is just done. I mean, if you're not Magic, don't even bother. Munchkin collectible card game proved that thing is dead and buried. Fantasy Flight went, you know what? If we can't get into that market, we're going to create our own and do our own different thing. And I think that was a really smart move on their part.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I think if there was going to be like a game in that style that I would ever even potentially think about getting into, it'd probably be this one from the way it sounds.
Yeah, because when I was teaching, like I used to teach Pokemon and stuff, and I always felt kind of bad because I feel like I was like opening the parents to financial debt teaching that game to kids. But this one, I'll be sitting there playing it, and they're like, "Hey, what's this game like?" "Oh, it's this Keyforge." I'm like, "How do you play?" It's like, "Well, just spend $10 there on that deck. Sit down, we'll play it, and if you don't like it, you just out $10." "You mean you don't have to buy boosters or a starter set and all this stuff?" "Nah, just $10. It's completely playable right there. I got all the extra stuff. I got the rules. I'll teach you right now. Let's go."
Yeah.
That accessibility to a collectible card game top is something that has not been done before, and I think this is where Keyforge is going to excel.
Yeah, there was someone local that's kind of was their selling point is that they could spend $10, get a deck. That deck is, if they play it a bunch, is theoretically just as good as any other deck that ever exists.
Yeah,
and yeah, that really hooked them pretty big on it.
Yeah, it kind of removes that whole stigma of pay to win.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, it still is. I mean, if you look at buying the decks itself up there, but you're not talking individual cards. I mean, I literally was teaching this game at a pre-launch party. Like a kid came up to me. He's like, "Oh," he was playing Magic. He came over. He's like, "Oh, what's this crazy new thing?" It's Keyforge. And then his mom came over, and you can just see a look on her face like, "Oh, dear God, not another collectible card game. I just had it with this already." And when I explained what it was, she was like, "Really? I just paid $10 and you can play it?" I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "You should get into this game." I told him, "Get right there."
Magic, throw that away. Throw that away. Play this. Yeah. No, that sounds really good. I've actually, I pretty much like dismissed it because I'm not into the collectible card game model usually, but the more I've heard about it, the more interesting it sounds.
And you're not the only one, Andy. I mean, there was one of my guys I play with who played L5R and is like, "I'm done." He couldn't keep up with it. When I started talking about Keyforge, he's like, no. And he bought a deck, then he bought another deck, and we keep playing and playing. I think he's up to like 4 decks now. He's like, "Oh, this is a lot better than I thought it would be. This is kind of fun."
Well, like conceivably, right? If you bought 2 decks and liked them, you could keep those 2 decks for ridiculous amounts of time, and they're like just as viable as the day you bought them, right?
Or at least until like the next expansion of new cards
the next
comes
big
out,
wave or something. If they change that, yeah. No, I'm very intrigued by it, especially like if for nothing else, I like the idea of this model way more than I do the booster pack model. So that's pretty cool. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our topic for today, which is something I've been thinking about for about a week or so now, but I'm calling it the cycles of board game media.
Like a bicycle?
Yeah, like a bicycle or something. I don't know.
The bicycle?
The 5-cycle?
Tricycle. Yeah. All right. Anyway, what I kind of mean by this is like there's a certain amount of gamers who just like buy games, they play games, and that's all they do. And then I think there's people like me who want to know anything and everything about whatever it is they're doing. And so you find all these YouTube things and craziness ensues. So I want to kind of think about and discuss like the cycles of media consumption that people do within the hobby and how that might change over time or not, maybe depending on who you are. So I kind of wanted to start off with, where we started when we were consuming board game media, which I think might be different for some of us. So that might be pretty interesting. So I'll throw it to you guys first. So Trent, what kind of led you to consuming board game media rather than just, playing board games, or how did you get started in that place?
The biggest reason, honestly, is time. I would rather be playing game, but it's often hard to just sit down and play a game with someone when you have 10 minutes to burn in the middle of your workday. It's a lot easier to just go online and it's like, oh, I'll look up Agricola because it's a game I like that I found on a local game store. The next thing you know, you're on Board Game Geek and you're reading about more and more games, and there you go.
Yep. TC, what about you? How did you kind of get started in board game media consumption?
See here, it started when way back in the day when we first got the second edition Arkham Horror board game, and we got the rule book, and we're like, there's a lot of questions about this game that this game doesn't specifically address. So we went to like the Fantasy Flight website to get like errata and facts and stuff, and that led to Board Game Geek. Right, and I think that's I think we can all do like 12 steps to Board Game Geek, like 12 steps to Kevin Bacon, right? Yeah. So that and then I found, and me personally, I found a lot of value in Board Game Geek looking at the comments that other people had. Right. I didn't drift towards the video reviews and all that. I always went to the comments because I like to see a varied opinion about what people thought of this game, have played it. Not just because that's because that obviously led, I think we can all say, would lead us to Dice Tower, and then Dice Tower is kind of neat. If I want to know what the game looked at, and I wanted to know like a quick impression of someone who played it for like 5 minutes, which is fine. But it's like, I want to know what more than one person says. But that was useful, so I could at least see what the game looks like. If I would have known what the game looks like, it would have saved me a lot of time from this in the early days of buying games. And went, oh, whoops.
Yeah. So it sounds like possibly, I don't know when you guys really started getting into the hobby of gaming, but it kind of sounds like I got into it, a little bit later than both of you did. So Murr in chat here said he started with tabletop with Will Wheaton, which is, I think, about where I started too.
Long before that.
Yeah,
long before that, my friends.
Yeah. So I'm still kind of a newbie in that one, but I'm also someone who like I have that nerd geek brain laser focus tendency. So once like I lock on to something, there's no getting me back for a while until I lock on to something else, maybe. But I started off kind of with tabletop just as an amusement, and I was like, oh wait, these actually look fun. They're not nearly as scary looking as they are when I like ran away from them and bought a new D&D manual or something. But they actually looked kind of interesting. And so I started going from there, and then, like I played one or two, and I'm like, well, I liked those on tabletop, but I don't really like these. How am I going to find more of them? And so, that kind of led to Board Game Geek. And then... I don't know, deeper levels of Board Game Geek when I went to, I'm not playing as many games as I wanted with my family. Do they have solo games? So I looked that up, and they're like, oh, this is like the highest ranked solo game. I'll buy that. It's called Mage Knight. It'll be fine. Anyway, several bottles of Advil later, I did figure out how to play that game. But then, then of course, you jump on YouTube, and then really kind of where I think I started getting more into the media side of it is after I moved up here and I'd done the tabletop thing, I started working at the school I was teaching at, which was about a 25-30 minute drive away. Well, I had 25-30 minutes of time to fill, and then double that. So say 45 minutes to an hour of my life of time to fill with something. I started off kind of listening to music, but that was really like, I don't know, like that doesn't really distract me all that well. I'm kind of more into talk radio kind of stuff, but even then I kind of wasn't finding enough. So I started like looking at board game podcasts. And so, that kind of led initially to the Dice Tower and looking at their stuff. And then, at some point that didn't like quite jive with me as well anymore. I just didn't feel a connection to those kind of games. But through the Dice Tower, then I kind of found the Long View, and that got really interesting. So it's like, oh wait, they're like really going into depth about a game. That made me more interested in different kind of games. Then eventually I found this podcast called Heavy Cardboard. And ever since then, I've been diving into weird nooks and crannies of the hobby where angels fear to tread, maybe. So that was kind of my path. And then eventually that led to, Joe at some point, and this was, I couldn't really get on at the time. I was somewhat like busy with my job at the time, but I asked if I could be a guest. But, Joe started a podcast because what we were finding, was we would almost be like reviewing and discussing games at our game meetups. And that discussing games was taking away too much time from actually playing them. So the kind of the good, the bored, and the ugly came out of that. So I went from kind of a media consumer to a media creator, which is weird. But I don't know. That was kind of the path I took. So has like that changed for you guys? Because I've noticed some changes in the last few years in the way I consume a media. How have things changed for you since those early days?
Can I go? Can I get really old manish here?
Go for it. Get curmudgeon-y. I want to get curmudgeon-y.
If you want to go back to how I started consuming board game media, my first consumption of board game media was Games Magazine back in the late 80s and early 90s.
Oh, wait, you read something? Do people even do that anymore?
So, Games Magazine was this magazine that came out about 6 times a year. My parents got me a subscription about 88 or 89, somewhere around in there, because I used to go over to my neighbor's house all the time and play games with her. And her it was mostly my neighbor, her name was Donna, and she loved to play board games, and I would go play them with her all the time. She introduced me to Acquire and a bunch of other stuff. Anyway, so I found out about this magazine. My parents subscribed me to it for like 7 or 8 years. And it was mostly like puzzles and stuff, which I enjoyed a lot. But there were always like 4 or 5 board game reviews in the back. Mm-hmm. And it was in Games Magazine that I first heard of Magic. It was in Games Magazine that I first heard of Settlers of Catan. And I didn't really know where to get them. And then my neighbor found me a black and white game catalog in like about 93 or so mm-hmm. that had like all kinds of weird stuff. It was from a company called Troll and Toad. And in this magazine, you could order like games from Avalon Hill and like stuff like 1830 was in it. And it was the place where through that catalog, I ordered my first Magic the Gathering cards. It was back when it was an unlimited. So like you were opening Black Lotuses type of thing. And all kinds of old board games. That's how I got into board game media, was through Games Magazine and the Troll and Toad catalog. So I'm like old school.
Okay. Are you old enough to remember? Okay, we're gonna see how old you are, because we'll kind of date myself here. You remember? Do you ever get the old Avalon Hill games where you got the catalog in the back and it had a sealed envelope where you put the sticker, you put the money order in it and you like sealed it and you like mailed it off to get your stuff and you're like checking the mail. You didn't even know there was no tracking or anything, right? You just mailed it, hope the money order went through, and you're just waiting day. Maybe it'll come in today. Maybe it'll come in today. Yep. Maybe, and like your parents was like, what's this thing? It's like advanced tank thing, blah blah blah. Like, oh, my game came in. 6 to 8 weeks for delivery was like an optimistic timetable for those things.
Right? One of the first games I ordered out of that Troll and Toad catalog was an Avalon Hill game, and there was an Avalon Hill catalog and an envelope in the box.
Yeah, see, that's old.
Yeah,
school,
I remember
man. That. Yeah, that was my.
That's freaking old school, man.
Like with the comic books, you're like, oh look, it has this catalog in the back of all these gimmick things that don't really work, like X-ray glasses and stuff. You know? Yeah, that's like, yeah. I mean, I still got like old D&D modules you break out from the first edition. You're like, man, the artwork for that's not very good. Yeah. It's not written really well, and I don't know if these charts are even mathematically possible. But we tried back in the day. There was no facts. There was no Board Game Geek to check up on it. You just did the best you could with what you had.
Oh yeah. Well, did you guys? I heard this on some interview I read too, but. You know, slight tangent, but back in the day, because war gamers kind of ended up being like chess players. Like it was hard to find enough people in your local community to play with, so they started doing like correspondence war gaming.
Oh yeah,
play by mail. Yeah,
play by mail.
Yeah, but apparently, because the issue with the war game is you need a randomizing element to do the combat rolls in most of them, right? So apparently they started using the stock market as a randomizer.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
To be like, based on this stock going up or down is what your 2-hit roll was or whatever it was.
No, I played in one of those with my neighbor's youngest son, and I played in a couple play-by-mail games, and the one they used was the last digit of the Dow Jones Industrial Average closing on a particular day when they needed to generate a number from 1 to 10. So you'd like have to like save the newspaper and then like, you know, like whatever date was on the postmark is what you had to use.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
so,
the things we did to connect, man, back in the day.
before the internet.
I tell Kate these stories. My daughter is like, "Really, Dad? Why don't you just go on the internet?" I'm like, "Honey, that wasn't even. That was such a pipe dream back then. We had rotary phones. That was high tech for us."
Yeah, the one that I got on that one was when I was at this big Chicago hotel and we were in like the old parking garage lobby. And my son looked over at the wall. He's like, "Daddy, why do the phones have springs?" And I looked over. It's like the old windy cords on them. And I'm just like, oh, my God.
I'm old.
I have failed as a parent. My child does not understand me.
Well, or like, what was it somebody brought up that's amusing? And I never thought about it until now. But like the save icon on most Microsoft things is a picture of a 3 1/4 floppy disk.
Uh-huh.
Like what child has seen a 3 1/4 floppy disk? But anyway, so yeah, I guess another thing to think about, I guess, is how does your media consumption change over time, maybe? Because I noticed for me, like the kinds of board game media I prefer to consume has changed quite a bit.
That's the name of it. I was trying to find the name of the game that I used to play by mail with. It was called Star Web.
Wow.
It was made by Flying Buffalo Games. I found it. I was looking online for it while you were talking. Anyway, I'm just dating myself. Ignore me.
Yeah. But I've noticed like what I like to consume has changed over time. So for example, what I really liked, particularly early on the hobby, was reviews. I wanted to know about all the different games and what they were like and all of that kind of stuff. So that's what I really that's what I was really grabbing at. And some of the extra stuff that would be thrown in for amusement value, I kind of just like chucked to the side. I didn't care that much. But that's kind of what I preferred to consume. And that has changed for me quite a bit over the years. Like now I listen to reviews a little bit of the channels I still follow, but for the most part, I don't really care about them anymore. I found the topics that I prefer to consume now is more topic-based things, kind of like we're doing now, or thoughtful reflections about the hobby, or particularly things with design theory, a lot more of like how do things work rather than reviews of games. And at least for me, it feels like I've been in the hobby long enough and I kind of know what I like enough that I don't need those reviews as much as I used to. Has anything like that? Is that a similar story for you guys, or is it kind of different?
I find that at this point, most of my views on games comes down from conversations with people whose opinions I trust. Mm-hmm. I look at some reviews as an entertainment factor and to get a general gist of what a game is like, but it doesn't tell me whether or not it's something I'm going to get value out of and enjoy myself. Right. That comes more from conversations with people I trust, generally people that have actually played it.
Yeah. What about you, TC?
That's interesting because, back when I first was getting, discovered, getting back into board games and discovering, I mean, there is so much media content out there for board games in the past, 5 years than there has been in like the previous 3 years before that. Trying to figure out there are podcasts about what beer goes well with the board game. I mean, if you can imagine it, it's out there and they're entertaining, and what's emerged, unfortunately, is that there seems to be a lot of personalities, right, dominating, right? It's not really about the game, it's how a personality reacts to it. Like, to give you an example, I personally take a lot of amusement when Rondo has to play a war game. I like seeing his.
He had to play Root recently.
Yeah. Watching him have to do with a game that's primarily conflict driven is hilarious to me. And I know if I go like, okay, I was like with Root, I was like, I want to, or some other game of that ilk, I'll be like, okay, I know some of these personalities. I know if these people don't like it, it's definitely something I need to look into. So that's kind of where I've gone with my board game consumption is like, okay, I've listened to some of these people enough. I know what they like, right? You can tell. And so I judged on their reaction to the game they play. I know if it's something I'm going to like or not. I mean, there are some media personalities out there. It's like if they absolutely love a game, I'm like, whoa, time out. That's going to be like a multiplayer solitaire Euro game that I'm absolutely going to detest. Because I don't know if you guys have been in a situation, but I got burned pretty early on with some guy raving about a game. I think it's the best thing since Catan or some other big popular game. And you play it and you're like, what the heck were these people thinking? This is what, but and you realize really quickly, it's not the game, it's the personality. It's not in their wheelhouse, so to speak. So that was like my first big thing. I'm like, I gotta be real careful about who I listen to and what they like, because it's not going to be exactly aligned with what I like. I mean, I'm notorious for picking up some garbage game and going, hey, this is pretty cool. Everybody else is going, are you smoking crack? But then again, I have a gaming group that I get a lot of enjoyment of making them suffer. It's fun.
Yeah. Well, and that's similar to me in a way, because when I started in the hobby, like Rahdo was a good barometer for me in what I would like. But that was also before he seemed to be not constantly reviewing Kickstarter games.
Oh God, yeah, we could go into a big wormhole on this thing, because you get there are reviews out there that just do paid reviews on Kickstarter stuff. So you're like, okay, there's no merit in that. There are things out there that are locked behind a Patreon wall that you have to subscribe to just to get the full content. And you're like, okay, I don't, that doesn't have much value for me.
That's an interesting thing, like to consider, because I think one thing I've noticed that's changed a lot that I don't know if it's good, I don't know if it's bad, and I don't even know what it is.
It just is. Okay.
It just is. But back when Joe kind of started this podcast and I came on a time or two just for fun, like it other than the Dice Tower, I don't really know of anyone who was trying to make a living doing board game media.
Yeah.
Like, most of it was just people doing it for fun. But now you've got loads of people that they're like, I want to make this my career. And they're like pumping out video after video after video. And, I watched an interview with Mark Herman today, and he was kind of talking about this, that when people reviewed Churchill, there were people that he could tell by the way they talked about things that they had never played anything in Churchill but the introductory scenario.
Yeah, that was I talked to Mark about that. It was when I brought him on when I used to do the Tattered Board. I had an interview with him. I was like, look, there was one in particular, one reviewer. It was Joel Eddy. I hate to throw names out, but I did it. I'm done. I can get all the hate mail you want. But you could tell he blacklisted Churchill.
Oh, was that the one? I was trying to figure out who it was earlier.
Yeah, he blacklisted it, and you listen to him, you're like, he never got beyond the intro. So when I was talking to Mark, I'm like, Mark, there's a fantastic game here, but you have to play the full thing. It's like the thing I'm running into with John Company, right? Everyone's like, well, the first half of the game is just a chaotic mess of dice rolling. I'm like, yeah, but it fits into the larger context of the game, and people aren't giving games and with GMT games, you have got to set aside a month just to wrap your head around the concept of this thing, right? And if you don't give its due diligence and you walk away with the wrong first impression because you're playing a tiny fraction of the game, I have run into that so often. It's like, it drives me up the wall.
Right. But I mean, that's the rush, because if you're going to be professional at it, like the impetus to publish so much, like you just can't do that.
Yeah, especially if you're making money off of it. It's all the content is everything, and content is. I mean, just in terms of getting stuff out, you just gotta. If you're making. Yeah.
Well, and that's where, maybe a criticism, maybe not. I don't know. when Heavy Cardboard, for example, first started, their tagline was board games 18xx, medium heavy Euros 18xx and war games.
Mhm.
And they do that. But you've definitely noticed over time that there's been less 18xx and less war games, which makes total sense, because if you have to get out content, like, you can't do a proper review of 18. Just playing the dang game 5 times, you're talking 40 hours of just gameplay, So I don't know, like, maybe that's an interesting point, because my personal taste over the years, I've gotten into these vastly more complicated, particularly opaque games that do not reveal their secrets quickly or easily.
I mean, games that say Cole Worley on the box.
Cole Worley or Sierra Madre, one of the two, both.
Oh, you know what?
Or in some cases, both.
Both. But GMT as well, I mean, or 18xx games as well. Like, they all take time to give up their secrets. And if you're trying to be a professional and get lots of eyes on your content, I just don't see where you have that time. I mean, it's just, I'm not criticizing the people for not doing it, because how do you make reviewing 18xx even a sustainable business model?
Yeah, no kidding.
I don't know how you do that.
I know it's not like the people who are making the games have that much extra money to spend to, pay people to promote it. I mean, that's very much a passion hobby right there.
Right. Like, it's like the designers and in most cases the publishers aren't doing that to make money.
Yeah. They're just barely breaking even. They're not doing it for money. They're doing it because they want to get the game out so other people can play it to enjoy it. I mean, 18xx is a prime example of that. I mean, you can make the same argument a little bit to GMT, but they just say, like, give us 500, we're going to make it,
Yeah. But even GMT, they do better than, like, all aboard games does.
Oh, yeah.
By far. But yeah, I mean, but there are the war game publishers who are similar, right? Yeah, but I mean, I guess for you guys, is like your topic preferences changed over time? Like I said, like, I used to like reviews. Now I almost, I don't know, like, I just am a naturally curious person. So, like, I really gravitate now to people who review people, or not review people, but interview people or do topics related to, like, how things work. Like, just the idea of, like, when I send a game to Panda, what steps happen at Panda? Like, I just want to know that. And I tend to, like, try to seek that out more, or particularly I'm more interested in interviews with designers than I ever used to be. Is that kind of true for you guys, or is that kind of always, I don't know.
I know what you're getting at, but it depends on the individual.
Yeah.
It depends. I find I have people whose opinions I trust, and those people I will stick with and definitely read their reviews. Anyone else, if I look at their review, it's basically for entertainment. At best. I don't really get any value other than just, like, generally, what is this game? How does it work?
Do you ever find you like listen to channels kind of I'm not saying I do this to any I listen to, but I felt like for a while I was listening to certain podcasts more out of, like, a weird sense of support and loyalty rather than caring about what was being done on the podcast anymore.
Yes.
Well,
I have some guesses as the names, but we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I won't throw anybody under the bus, but
Andy will throw people under the bus, just not on the air.
Not on the air. No. Yeah. Outside of the air, it's here. Let me push you under the bus and have a good time. But anyway, TC, go ahead.
I was going to say, well, feel free to throw me under the bus, because I mean, to a large extent, with my progression here was that I basically took over the long view for Jeff because I didn't want that to go away.
Right.
I knew that was going away, and it was one of the few podcasts out there I really enjoyed. And I find that I don't care if people like what I say or not. My entertainment and my joy comes in listening to other people talk about things they enjoy.
Right.
I really like that. And, you get, my success with Longview, I really, whatever. I get the opportunity to contact people and talk to them and listen to games they are really passionate about and enjoy. And that to me has more value than a review, right? Because I always find that someone who knows a game, loves the game, and can teach me the game and likes it, whether you think it's a good game or a bad game, whether, personally I think it's a good game or a bad game, I just enjoy listening to the enthusiasm and the knowledge that someone's going to bring to the table when it comes to this kind of thing. Now, I've had various success with people, and but that's what I enjoy. And then when Joe approached me and said, "Hey, you want to be on the Good, the Bored, and the Ugly? Just talk." I'm like, "Shoot, yeah," because I just like talking. I like hearing people. Right. I think I put with you guys. I put more value on opinion because I'll say, look, I like fighting games. I like rolling dice. I like confrontations and, confrontations. And I like having a good time. Andy, I know you like the economic things. And so if you say, there's a good bid, auction game, I'm going to look into it. Trent, I know that with card games, like with L5R and all that, I know if there is a good card game or constructible game, and even more specifically, games that you enjoy playing with your family, which I have a lot of, I like the opinion, and I like it because, I'm not coming at this as an expert on anything board gaming. I am not. My expertise is in human body tissue. Okay, if that's what you want, that's my expertise. This is my entertainment value. This is my relaxation. This is my hobby. Right. And I like, I'm by no means an expert on any. I can't tell you. Jeff Engelstein would be someone you want to go to hear about board game design. Good Lord, he'd probably know more in his pinky than I have in my whole body about designing a board game.
And like his stuff, I mean, Ludology and the Longview have been two podcasts. I think that like they've stuck with me for a long time. I think it's because so much of it is with Ludology, you get just that intellectual satisfaction of. He's like, we have so many board game designers who listen to this and we're going to give them tips. I'm like, I am never going to design a board game. Like there is no part of me that ever even wants to.
Yeah, I have no desire to.
It's fascinating to listen how people think about it.
And that's part of my problem with some of these other, they just like, they think when they review a game, they say, well, this is bad because all these reasons that makes it objectively bad. Okay, that's debatable. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's really debatable. Even in science, there's no absolutes. You know that, Andy. Gravity's just a theory, but my feet are still on the earth. It's a pretty good theory,
Yeah. Well, or for me, like, and this is a hill I'll die on. So if any other media creators out there want to take me to task and go to town, so be it. But there are a lot of people, particularly that make their living through reviews, that say they are objective in their work. And I am like, bull. It is not humanly possible to be purely objective. It's not possible. But all you got to do is, and that kind of alludes to kind of what you were talking about before, though, is you allude to what your preferences are. Yeah. Like, for example, if you give me two heavy economic games to review, then I can be fairly objective there because I like heavy economic games. But if you give me two games, like say a party game that is an excellent party game and in a heavy economic game that's an excellent heavy economic game, and you say which one of these is objectively a better game, I'm naturally going to go, oh, the heavy economic game, the party game's crap. Like... And I can truly think I'm being objective in that, but the truth is we all have natural biases. Yeah. And I think that alludes to kind of some things you guys said about as you get deeper into the hobby, you start finding people's opinions you trust because you know what kind of things they like and are into.
Exactly. That's dead on.
And then you start kind of pruning, like, I know I did this with board games in general. Like, I think when you're new to the hobby, you just like open this big umbrella, bring everything in, and then you're like, I don't need this anymore. I don't need that anymore. And you just kind of prune down to, what kind of lines up best with what you want to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And another thing with media content creation is that it's really easy to get obsessed over numbers and viewers and all that baloney.
Well, especially if you want to be professional, quote unquote.
I can guarantee you right now, I don't even care about that stuff. I could look at numbers if people watch the long view and stuff. I honestly do not care. And I promise you, like right now, I mean, we could be all like, oh, dude, we need to get like 400K viewers watching. But I can tell you right now, the 5 people that are watching this, I'm looking at YouTube, who are listening to this right now, I have more respect for and am more happy about than having an extra 10,000 on top of that.
Oh,
you know, like,
sure.
You know, it's just.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. And it like continually baffles me. And I think this is just me as a person. But when people are like, "Oh, I bought this game because of what you said about it," I'm like, "You listened to what I said?
Yeah.
Are you
really
insane?"
Like, did you like it?
Like, wait, I said something useful. Let me go tell my wife. She said I'd never do that. No,
my opinion has value. Oh no.
Yeah.
Sorry. Hope you enjoyed the game.
For board game, quote unquote reviewers or creators, that's probably an easy situation to find yourself in, because the vast majority, come from like the lovely, nerd spectrum of the world where you did your best just to not be noticed for anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then, I just go to a local convention here and then I get out when I can. It's not the easiest to find extra money when you live in a really high-end area like I do. But, I don't go to conventions to like, oh, hey, look at me. I to a large extent, I still value being anonymous and just going to a convention and just playing games and just, just being because I can't imagine being like Rado or someone and going up and be like, oh, hey,
people swarm you constantly.
Oh, no, that is like an absolute nightmare situation.
About 5 years ago, I did video reviews for a while, and I got recognized by several people at BGG-Con, and it almost made me uncomfortable.
Yeah,
we like your stuff, Trent. We watch it every day. Yeah, like, I need a security guard or something.
Well, the one that threw me this was a couple weeks ago. No disrespect to the guy if you're watching, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but it was kind of hilarious. Like, it was on the Facebook like train gamers group or something I joined. And he threw out this little cube rails game that he'd been playing. He's like, oh, I brought this back out of the closet. Oh, I forgot how solid this design was. He's like, hey, if anyone wants to check this out, I'll send you the PNP links. And I'm like, yeah, I'll check it out. Go ahead and send me the links. He's like, oh, that would be such an honor. And I'm like, what? And he's like, I love your work on The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. I'm like, you do? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, that just speaks to us. I mean, to us personally, we're like, we're not seeking that out. We're just doing it because we're enjoying it. I will gladly pay whatever fees we need to keep this thing going, because I do not want to do Patreon on this. I don't. I like having it open, and we do what we do. And it just speaks to us, I think, as human beings, what we're wanting to accomplish and what we enjoy.
What do you mean? I'm obviously here to get rich.
Well, Trent, we know you're obviously an exception to the rule.
I treat this podcast as an economic game.
Oh, good Lord! Have we lost? Have I lost the auction? Am I going to go into negative points? Am I going to get thrown under the bus?
I know that's not true, Trent, because you treat every situation as a negotiation game.
So every game you play with me turns into diplomacy eventually. Maybe not in the first play, but I guarantee you, if I'm playing with experienced players, I'm going to integrate diplomacy into it.
Yeah,
I try to integrate diplomacy into full co-ops.
We're going to lose together if you don't do this. Yeah, but I'm willing to do that. What are you going to give me for us to not lose this game together?
Well, yeah, it was like the last game in the Estates. Like, everybody kind of like started smashing on Joe. And I'm just like, I'm going to sit here and be quiet and win the game. But anyway, the one thing I've noticed that has changed with me, particularly, I think in the last year and a half, out of all the potential board game media I want to consume or do consume, the one thing I am just totally done with, like I will not even listen to an episode of this. Maybe if it's a podcast I really like, even then it's going to be an issue, is convention recaps.
Ugh.
I don't care anymore. I now know what all the conventions are. I don't care beyond that. I don't need any. And it's not even like fear of missing out or anger at, like some people be like, I don't want to see anything about it because I'm not there and I'm not getting all the cool stuff. I don't even care about that. I'm just like, I wasn't there. I'll get the games I want eventually. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Convention recaps for me are like a Dungeons and Dragons game. It's really awesome when you're involved in it and the story emerges and you think it's great.
Yeah.
Then you tell what happened in the game to someone else and they're like, that is the dumbest thing I have ever heard. What was going on? You did what? What?
Yeah.
So it's more, because conventions are more about the personal experience and the people around you and that. And so it's really contained, right? And if you wrote like a story about most people's role playing games, they'd like be the worst fantasy novels on the face of the earth. And
it'd be like the NaNoWriMo of
yeah, right. I mean, Dragonlance Chronicles was almost that. I mean, literally, it was like them playing the modules, and you can tell those first few books are like borderline. Fortunately, they got better, but yeah, it's like you may think it's
Right. Book review.
Yeah, but
anyway.
But but I don't know. I think that's a fairly normal. Like I remember when I was like new in the hobby, some of the convention recaps like were fascinating. But then, in particular, one podcast's way of handling live shows, you start to realize that every one of their live shows is the exact same freaking thing every time. It's like, oh, let's have a bunch of people we know come up on and answer the same 3 freaking questions for an hour and a half.
I don't know what you're talking about.
And then after a while, I'm like, why am I listening to this? I'm like, this wouldn't have even been fascinating if I was there. But anyway, but yeah, that's just one thing I've noticed in particular, like the last year or so. I just don't care about that. I'm just like, if I can't go to the convention, I don't really care what happened there. An amusing story or two, sure, it's amusing to listen to, but I don't need to listen to another convention report on BGG Con. I know what BGG Con's kind of going to be. I'm not going to be there, but I kind of know.
And plus, you listen to it and you're like, that sounded like it was kind of fun and I couldn't be there. I'm kind of mad. I'm jealous. I don't like this.
Most of the time I don't get like that because that's just going to be the case for me in virtually all conventions. So I've just accepted my lot in life on that front. But here's an interesting one I've been thinking about actually. So let's think about, because we've talked about that there are some people that want to do this professionally, right? And then there's people who do this, like I said, on our end of it, where, doing the podcasting and all that is kind of just like a side hobby to our hobby, Do you think there's specific kind of content or topics or things that fits better with one model or the other? So, for example, if I were to say board games reviews, would you rather see that coming from the hobbyist podcasters, or do you think the ones that are quote unquote the professionals would do a better job with that?
Okay.
I think you're going for 2 different things there in terms of better. Okay. There's a very different. I mean, there's a better in terms of professional sound editing.
Okay, so there's that, right?
Yeah, and I think that someone who's a professional at those kind of things are simply going to do it better than someone that doesn't really know what they're doing.
Let's talk about quality reviews, like that you would dub as a quality review, then, and ignore the technical side of it for this purpose.
Okay, let me take a stab at this. I'm
really afraid of saying what I'm thinking because I think I'm gonna get in trouble.
Okay, if you are in this to make a profit, okay, if you are a professional,
I think TC's gonna go where I was gonna go, and I'm afraid to.
if you're this, you have got to get eyes on something early and often, right? You know, that's going to generate your hits, your views, if you're into that type of thing. So, like, it's really important for you to get on the early train to get a good to cover the game. Now, whether you can like review it properly in that short amount of time frame is, I don't know, that's debatable. But in terms of being profitable, what you're doing, you've got to get out there early and often before anyone else. That's the name of the game. It's a race. I found that out doing my own podcast. It's like, but for, I think what hobbyists, that's what we call hobbyists, like a ham radio operators, I guess what we'll call ourselves, right? Is that we like to really dig in and explore the game, right? But that takes time. And generally, and this, I swear, the board game hobby is going to video games. I mean, people are on it, play it, and done within a week. I mean, just seeing the retail side of this is so eye-opening lately, because if a product comes in and it doesn't sell and it's taking up shelf space, then that shelf space is eaten into their margin, and you got to clear off that shelf space to get new product on there that will sell. That's the bottom line with making a profit in the board game store and that in a store. And I think to a large extent, that's the way you have to do if you're going to be making a profit on doing a podcasting thing. So you got to get out early, often, and cover as much crap as you can. Now, the quality of that, who knows? I couldn't do it. I would burn out in like two weeks doing that thing. I prefer to grab the GMT game that I know about, I've looked into, I wrapped the shrink off, and I've played it, and I prefer listening to other people who do the same thing. I get really worried when I hear, when I listen to a board game personality or media personality, they say like, I got all these games and half of it's on shrink. To me, that's a big red flag.
Yeah.
Am I in trouble? Did I go there, Trent?
I think I would have went even further, and I think it's probably better if I don't.
Okay, that's about as far as I want to go, and I don't know if that was far enough, but I mean,
no, I think that's valid criticism, though. It just kind of speaks to like the consumption culture. I mean, even kind of like a slight tangent to that, I get on people for because this is the thing that's turned me off of Kickstarter games more than anything. When you get they're like, oh, but look, I have 20 add-ons and look at how much comes in the box. You know, if I play this a lot, that will come in handy. I'm like, you're never going to play it that much.
Yeah.
You'd be lucky if you hit 5 plays of it. Be honest. You don't need the 20 expansions.
Yeah. But you got that completism, you know. Like, oh,
what do you mean? I needed the solo expansion for Feudum.
Yeah.
Badly.
Actually, in with how well Feudums went over so far, yeah, you did need the solo expansion. I don't know. I shouldn't say anything. I actually haven't played it. It just seems like...
okay, sidebar quick into Feudum. The problem with Feudum is it's almost inscrutable to figure out what's going on in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like every time that's been brought out, it's been a slight bomb at game night.
Oh, I would grab that bomb just like Slim Pickens and Doctor Strangelove with you guys. Wah! I would experience this thing.
Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, I think that's valid. What about let's see. Let's think about like topics, kind of like this. So like we're doing it for the most part a topical show, right? With a little reviews thrown in. Do you think board game professionals do like? I honestly, I don't think I see too many of the quote unquote board game professionals do that. Like I don't
because
see a lot of
okay, I'm gonna do this now because you've been pushing me into this. All right, if you're doing this,
if you're
doing this as a professional and you're really legitimately trying to make a living as a board gaming reviewer, part of your motivation in that game is to sell your listeners on buying more games,
right?
Because that's the only way you're ever going to get people that will sponsor your show. That's how you're going to have to do it because there is not a big enough audience that's going to pay you via Patreon to do it otherwise. The possible exception to that is Dice Tower, and that's just because they literally spam out reviews of literally everything.
Yeah.
Almost anyone else is going to have to like do paid reviews, and they're going to have to spend their time cultivating sponsorships and getting people to buy games. That's what it's all about. The way you do that is you just review, and when you do that, you can't do it in depth. That's all there is to it. You honestly, genuinely can't do truly deep reviews and make a living at it. It doesn't sustain.
Right.
You know, it's not like
at
a
least
movie
in today's
where
market.
you can...
The market.
Yeah, in today's market is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about like some theoretical, hypothetical future where you could do that. I'm talking about now. It doesn't exist. You can't do it.
Yeah, and it's not like reviewing a movie where you can watch it in like 2.5 hours and write an in-depth review with some of these heavier games. It's just the time requirement in there to actually to figure it out and give a decent in-depth review is just it can't be done. If you're
I will say there's nothing inherently wrong with the Dice Towers model. It's just their model is they give quick summaries of games of all of them. That's what they do. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't give me any depth other than something I could almost get off of reading the Board Game Geek summary of it. And so,
and the thing
what's the value?
The thing that makes it rough too is, and this is where I think a lot of people struggle in media to do that, is so many people try to do that model when they're trying to scale up. And then it always comes back to, well, why should they listen to you over the person who already got there first? You know?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just agreeing with Andy. It is difficult to do quality board game media because it's just not. It's so niche. The only way you can do it is a hobby with passion and maybe make enough to go to a convention occasionally off of it. I think that's about the cap. If you're really trying to do really high quality reviews where you played a game a bunch and you played heavy games and such, it's the only way you can do it.
And the other question is can you even sustain that for a lifetime?
That depends on how much you like your board games, I suppose.
Oh yeah, I just I truly don't know how some of them do it without just stressing out. I mean, there's things I'm the stereotypical gamer of the slightly autistic obsessive personality. And even after a while, I'm just I need to step away for a bit, but you can't do that if you're trying to make a living off of it.
And to spin it back around to opinion, what we say earlier about giving opinions about stuff. You don't see a whole lot of professional people do that simply because the fear of the blowback that could cause.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you could do I remember old Tom Vassell, he would just say something in passing and then it was slightly opinionated, but it kind of made sense. And then the forum would just explode and people are just and you see numbers drop and stuff. And so just the risk of that, especially in the environment of right now, just saying something wrong that could be taken the wrong way and you lose your viewership and listeners, which is what you're trying to gain.
If you go down, you say something awful about a game and the publisher just cuts you off of review copies because there's no way you can afford to buy all those.
And
games.
the fact that Asmodee is just gobbling up everything. I mean, you can just go to it's that's Asmodee. That's Asmodee. That's Asmodee. It's if Asmodee says you know what, we're not. That's well, there goes 2/3 of the stuff. Okay, guess that's it. It's just it's crazy. I mean, I've seen in Reddit. Good Lord, you've seen Reddit explode over something.
No, I stay away from that. No.
Yeah, I've made the mistake of just opening that and going, never again, X.
Yep. Yeah. No, it does get crazy, but that's what was it? That's the criticism I've heard. I think it was even in that Mark Herman interview where he said so many reviews are not really reviews; they're just snapshots of how to play the game.
Yes.
Yep.
Because the actual process of reviewing is work, and
yes, it is.
I mean, honestly, the reviews I do on here are snapshots about how I feel about a game and very rough play overview, because the actual time invested to do a really quality review that's meaningful and their listener/viewer/reader gets genuinely meaningful things out of it beyond a summary of the gameplay is really hard work.
Yeah, this is, for example, we did Keyforge at the beginning, right? We talked about Keyforge. Now, for me, I didn't think I did we're just giving our impressions of what we like about stuff. But for me, if I was going to do a really full professional in-depth review of Keyforge, I'd have to go get all the card lists, figure out all the decks, figure everything out, play it a heck of a lot more, right? And I don't have the time or inclination to do that. I can say it's I've enjoyed what I played. Hey, Trent, do you like it? Yeah, cool. There we go.
Yeah. Let's see. We're getting on time. Why don't we go ahead and wrap this up and then kick it over to the hype section? So do you guys have any final thoughts on kind of the cycles of board game media or how it's changed for you over time?
Yes, listen to The Good, Board, and the Ugly, and you're done.
Yeah, done. There's a couple I might add into that. Yeah, I still enjoy the
long view. Yeah, we gotta put in the long.
Oh,
view,
I heard that one kind of went downhill. You know, I heard it went kind of bad.
I hear with that Alhambra review, the podcast really went down.
I went really bad. Yeah. Now, there's. I mean, like I said, now that I know most of the personalities and what they like and don't like, I can plus. I'm selective of who I listen to, what they say, and I put it all in perspective. I think that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think for me, what I tend to listen to is more out of a sense of my general curiosity about the world than anything else. So now that, I can kind of look at games myself and figure them out, I try to listen to things that basically have something to tell me I didn't know about the hobby, or like the publishing end or the distribution end or the design end. I just like to know,
or the topic that the game is about.
Yeah, the topic. Yeah, like history games are big for me now. Like, and then I go learn things about them because of that. I really like to learn from what I'm doing, and so I think that's evolved with my taste in board game and the media I've consumed. All right, so let's go ahead and kick it into hype then. Let's see. I'm gonna throw out one for Joe here because this is a timely thing. Joe wanted to hype the City of the Big Shoulders on Kickstarter. It's a game we've played in this group several times and we've been big fans of. I just looked online earlier today that there's 7 days left. I believe they broke 6 figures on it. If you're a fan of economic games, particularly with Euro elements, or if you want to know you're a Euro gamer and wonder if 18xx has any appeal for you at all, I think this is a good game to go look. It's still, for my money, the best combination of a resource management worker placement Euro game in 18xx that I have ever seen. It may be the only one I've ever seen, but but it does it well. I've played it in its early form. I've played it in a much more recent form. All of the changes improve the gameplay. And
I haven't played the revisions yet, and I love the original so much that I insta-backed it based on the old version. And I've heard that the new version's nothing but improvements.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they make things just run click, click, click smooth. And the nice thing is you can play it as nice as you want if you're, like Euro gamers and not quite used to the war of business yet. You can play it where it's not too mean, or you can, basically do 1830, the worker placement resource management game, and be horrible to each other.
Or you can turn it into diplomacy.
Oh,
yeah.
But
Here it comes.
Yeah, seriously though, go check it out. It's got good, reasonable stretch goals. And I will add, because we've played prototypes, that all of the stretch goals were play tested in advance. Okay, so that's all. But yeah, go check out City of the Big Shoulders. If you value any of our opinions on these heavy economic games, this one would be worth your money for sure.
My impression is, and this is based on my own couple plays of the prototype, is that on the Kickstarter is like this expansion they're selling that includes like 5 new companies. Those were tested just like all the other companies. So like
they were all
they were all tested as the same batch. So don't view that as like some sort of untested garbage content. It's just as well tested as anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I made someone else kickstart it, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, it's really good. Yeah, I broke it out with a group a couple weeks ago who hadn't played 18xx at all yet, and they're just like, man, running my companies is so much fun. So yeah, no, it's good. It's really good. All right. So up next, that's a Surrogate Joe review.
Surrogate Joe.
Surrogate Joe. And TC, why don't you do it next?
All right. So I got the opportunity to get involved in a game of Betrayal Legacy. Now, this is a game that was based as a kind of a legacy reworking of Betrayal at House on the Hill, which, to be quite honest, was a game that was held together by theme and duct tape. Anybody who's played
Betrayal at House on the Hill is, you don't play it for its like strategic value or consistent rules. No. You play it because of the thematic feel of the game.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So
if you want consistent, sensible rules, don't play Betrayal at House on the Hill.
Yeah, Betrayal at House on the Hill is just absolutely, you just play it to experience it, and you just kind of fudge the rules as you go because there's different scenarios because it changes it up. So, they announced that they were doing a legacy version of this game. By Rob Daviau announced it being published through Avalon Hill. I'm like, oh lordy, we've been playing through Seafall. We've been enjoying it, but man, I've always been curious what his next design's gonna be. So, we're like, okay, we went into it. We split the cost, so we wouldn't feel that bad when it all went south and we saw it heavily discounted in the future, like Seafall. But we played it and we got through the first two scenarios. And I can honestly say that this impression isn't hype, is that this seems to be functioning a lot better than the base game. Rob has gone back and he's tightened up the rules a bit. And since the game is hugely thematic anyway, the legacy part just builds onto it. And the best thing I can say about this so far is that it's a 5-player game, but it's actually a 6-player game because the 6th player is the house. And this thing is brutal, it's horrific, and it's delicious. I mean, just to give you an example, we were playing it and we played the first I won't spoil it. We played the first haunt, and we're like going, well, this is kind of broken. How's it work? And then there's a huge twist in it, and we're like, that was really cool. And it happened because I just sucked at the dice and I got taken out in one hit. Someone just punched me and I died. I thought that was kind of lame. But then I got to see what was happening. It was cool. And then we activated the second hunt and my daughter triggered it. And so I'm like, okay, she's 14. I don't know if she'll be able to understand this, but here, you take this book and you have to go aside and like figure out how to kill us. And while we have to figure out how to survive. And all we heard for like 10 minutes was giggling behind a closed door in the bedroom. And she came out and she massacred all of us. And it was like one of the best gaming experiences ever. And it wasn't because it was balanced. I mean, it was wildly unbalanced. And it was like borderline broken how you could survive that. But it was so much fun. And we're changing it up. We're naming the items, personal items. And the biggest selling point is this game is actually replayable after you play it. It's not going to be like Pandemic Legacy where once you're done. Yeah, but this is going to be an actual game you can play. And if that's the case, maybe I can actually get that Widow's Peak expansion and play around with it. So now,
be careful with that one. I've heard a horror story on that one.
But the thing is, that's half of the quote fun of Betrayal at House on the Hill is that
this one was bad.
Train wreck.
Yeah.
No, this one was bad. It apparently involved, shall we say, a group of people of alternative lifestyles to normal gender norms and such. And the haunt involved one of them having to turn into a certain president. Yeah, they like immediately it just soured the whole night died. Like everybody left angry and they literally threw that game in the trash and never played it again.
So if I complete through Betrayal Legacy and I say something like that, I will give you guys a huge warning. But
the Widow's Walk expansion is just like, let's make 50 extremely weird ass scenarios is what it is. And they're like, some of them are weird.
Yeah. So, and I've been kind of wanting to explore it, but I'm like, I don't know if I want a base game. But if this game is completely playable after we've customized it, then maybe we can look into that. But for now, this might be an actual nice return to form for the Legacy and Rob Daviau. And that's even after, because I actually got to play, I guess it could be another secondary episode. I actually got to try the new Fireball Island and was like, You know, it's okay, but
It's
Betrayal
kind of hard to
Legacy.
tell how much of that one's toy factor,
Yeah.
really.
But with Betrayal Legacy, I think that game was just made to be legacy, where you can just like you're playing different family members and they die horrific deaths and they leave stuff behind that's named after them. And yeah, it's so far it's been pretty cool. And I'll give you maybe I know we'll finish it.
That concept actually sounds kind of neat because one of my favorite games on the GameCube was Eternal Darkness.
Oh yeah, where the game like says like you're going insane, like
Yeah,
the controller
well,
port's
and
not
like
working.
they went through time, so like one of your early characters you played would somehow make like, like something you did as that character would impact the guy in World War II or something like that.
You're right. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. Awesome. So that's Betrayal Legacy. Look for maybe a further review down the road from TC because that sure ain't coming out of Joe.
Yeah, well, and we definitely have that discussion ahead of time if we want to actually spoil it or not. Because right now, I want people to experience the twist this thing takes. At least the first one I didn't see coming, and it was so cool.
Well, maybe we'll go with the check-in. Just like, is it still cool or did it jump the shark?
Or if it goes like, are you still playing it? Yes. We only got 2 more scenarios to go.
We're hoping it doesn't sound like Trent and Gloomhaven. That's what we're going for.
Okay. Well, I'll give you updates.
All right, Trent, you're up next. What do you got?
Okay, I'm going to talk about Artifact. So Artifact is a game that actually just came out either yesterday or today. I'm not sure which. It's on Steam. It's a computer game. It's available for Mac and PC. It's basically Valve's take on Hearthstone is the way I would describe it, but it was designed by Richard Garfield, and it does several things that I really like that I consider to be a big improvement on Hearthstone. For one thing, it's the way I could describe this is you're essentially playing 3 games of Hearthstone simultaneously with the same hand, and you have to win the game on 2. You have to beat them on 2 of the 3 screens. So you're constantly trying to decide where to put cards, which of the 3 screens to put them on, and it ends up making Hearthstone, which I find boring, into a much better game. Is the way I would. I don't know how to say it other than that because it feels like there's actual real decisions rather than play the best card on the table and win with it. Because that feels like a Hearthstone always is to me. Like there aren't a whole lot of decisions. But if you got to decide where to put which of the 3 screens to put it on, there's a lot more decision space. I've been enjoying playing it. I just picked up the basic like starter version of it, whatever. The interesting thing is when you play the starter version, it's fairly easy to get tickets for events. And then if you use those tickets for events, and every event's like a ticket, it's really easy to get more cards. And then the thing is, you can take the cards and sell them on Steam and get credit back. So I've just about broken even on it.
Nice. That's what I was going to ask is if they did the annoying, like, do you want to pay real money or do you want to spend ridiculous amount of your life grinding it?
Either or, you kind of got the choice.
Okay.
It kind of lets you do whichever one you'd rather do. And the nice thing is, so it effectively has an individual card secondary market through the Steam community marketplace. So if you want a particular card, you can just go buy it if you really want to. Or you can just grind for it, or you can just buy packs. Whichever way you prefer to do it, it lets you do it. So I've just been playing. They have this thing that basically it's like a draft, but you don't keep the cards and it only costs a ticket. And I've got a big pile of tickets. And I seem to be fairly good at it because I'm always getting tickets and packs every time I spend a ticket, and I end up with a ticket and a pack or a ticket and 2 packs. And I played for a while, and I can literally sell the cards for money. So take that for what you will. Yeah, I've been enjoying it. I think it's a fun game. It's got a lot more to think about than Hearthstone, although in my opinion that doesn't take much.
I'm excited about this one. This was like Steam. I mean, I remember this is like Valve's big return to actually making something, right?
After the Half-Life franchise like into oblivion.
And I thought it was a really interesting choice that they got Richard Garfield doing. I'm like, well, we got Keyforge and this. Well, check them out. So I'm glad you played it because I've been wanting to try it out, but I've been kind of hesitant to dip my feet into it.
I would
Yeah.
like my description's what I would stick with. It's like playing 3 games of Hearthstone at once, and you got to win 2 out of 3 of them. But you only got one hand, and you got to determine where everything goes.
That does sound
Which of those 3 games do you want to put it into? And there's a little bit of, I mean, they can affect each other a small amount, but it's essentially 3 separate games.
That sounds kind of intriguing, though. Nice.
Maybe it's the year of Richard Garfield this year.
It seems to be. Like, between it and Keyforge,
He'll be raking it in pretty good.
Oh, he already has.
That's true. But all right, so that's Artifacts. I'm going to do a quick hype of my own for 18 Lilliput. I just got this in about a week ago. Haven't had time to get it to the table, but if you have not seen what this is, it's basically 18xx, the card game, more or less. And so instead of having a set map set in a historical time, your map is based on cards. So they're square cards. You lay them out. You can lay them out and it grows organically however you want. You still run company. There's shares of stock. There's payouts and all that kind of thing. Apparently, it's set in the universe of Gulliver's Travels, which is interesting. Whatever. But I just know when you buy a train, there's like a giant hand holding the train or something like that. But anyway, this looks interesting. I'm really interested to try it. One of the things, for example, Joe, who's not here, his big complaint is he always wanted an 18xx modular system. Like, why do I have to buy track tiles over again and all that? Well, this is probably the closest thing I've ever seen to that, because the map can be anything. Like, literally, Lonnie Orgler, the designer, could just print out more track cards of different, okay, lay them in this order, play now. That's what really interests me about, I think, the expansions that were added to it. Was the last one was terrain cards. So you can actually pre-set up the cards and positions to be terrain like you would find on a normal 18xx map. And now you got to figure out, am I going to build through it, around it, etc. Other than that, I don't know too much about it. I kind of purposely didn't form too many opinions about this one, like I often obsess about a Kickstarter. So I'm really interested to get it to the table and see what it plays like. I have really good hopes that this is one I could play at game night repeatedly, because I think the playtime's like 90 minutes or something.
Well, isn't it convenient that someone's already played it?
Yeah. Trey got there before I did, because I got back on Thanksgiving and everyone had stomach flu. So you didn't want me there that night anyway. It could have ruined a copy. So, but anyway, 18 Lilliput's one I'm really excited for. I really want to give it a shot.
Yeah, this one, I mean, this is probably one of the most bizarre mashups I've seen. It's like, we're going to take a train game and mix it with Gulliver's Travels. I'm like, is this an April Fool's joke or something? No, this is a real thing. Okay, I've got to play this thing at least once, and it's refreshing to hear that it's not just a gimmick based on that alone. That there's actually a real game of substance with this thing. So
Lonnie's been a good designer, and it doesn't surprise me that he did this, because the games I've played of his have always been like, let's twist the system almost to a breaking point and see what happens. Like, I think 1844 was his, which is just crazy. Like, there's 50 billion things going on in that game. Or 1880s, just an oddball too.
Yep, 1824.
1824. Yeah. He always
18CZ.
Yep. Yeah. So I tend to like his games, because he really, really stretches the system. So now it's like, let's see what happens when you make it not a standard map all the time, and see what happens then.
Okay, so I'm going to give a really, really quick review, because I have played it once. So it's basically an 18xx game, but I would say that it does a really good job of appealing to Eurogamers for 2 reasons. One, the dynamic map is a huge huge benefit, because you can't just come up with the standard thing that you're going to approach it right off the bat. It forces it, because there's not really a standard map, to be more tactical. The other thing is the whole game is based around a action selection mechanism that's very different than how normal 18xx's work. Basically, there's these cards sitting out on the table, and they have an action on the top, each card has a choice of 2 actions on it, and you go around the table and people draft those cards each round. So it's like there's an action card draft. So, like, say there's 8 cards sitting out there. It's your turn. You choose one of them. You're going to do one of those 2 actions. And then it goes around the table, and people are picking them. And when it gets back to you, there might only be, like, 3 left. And you have to choose one of those and do the best you can with it. You do get 1 card that lets you steal an action from someone else. Like, they've already done it, and you get to take it, again, without having to actually draft the card. But if you never do that, that card's worth victory points at the end of the game. So you're kind of disincentivized from doing that. It felt to me like a really good mix of 18xx and Euro, which is just what we were talking about with City of the Big Shoulders. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it's a really good game.
Now, I had a question for you on this one, Trent.
Sure.
Between those two, my base impression, like I said, I played City of the Big Shoulders plenty, but my impression is that 18 Lilliput leans closer to the 18xx side of that. Would you say that's true?
Yes. I would say 18 Lilliput is the game that you want to play if you want something closer to an 18xx. And City of the Big Shoulders is what you want to play if you want something closer to a Euro.
Right. Okay. I was curious about that. So, yeah, and also it's fun. It's neat because, like, isn't there like in a beginning draft or something you get like characters with special abilities? And
yes, but that feels a lot like a private company. That feels a lot like a private company draft because of the abilities. Feel a lot like private companies in a typical 18xx game.
Yeah, and then there's like 4 starting companies that are all a little asymmetric as well.
Yep, they feel like companies that have already absorbed a private.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, it looks really neat. Now, the other thing, because I'm getting this impression as well, but for people who kind of know 18xx a little bit, would you say this is more of the a run good companies style of game or a stock shenanigan game?
Running good companies. I don't even hesitate to say that.
Yeah, that was kind of my impression as well. I was kind of curious what you would say on that.
Oh, it's absolutely run good companies. The companies in my... And I don't see how this wouldn't be true in other games, although I haven't played it. It's felt to me like all the companies wound up being fairly close to each other in value. It was hard to do a lot of stock shenanigans. You could, and I did do a little, but I almost think that it might have cost me more than it was worth to do what I was doing because I was trying to take the guy who was in the lead stock value down.
Yeah.
And I think it ended up costing me more than it was worth, and I've been better off focusing on just making my own company run better.
Right. And yeah, I was just curious because I have heard some criticism about this game, but it really sounded like the criticism was based on people that prefer the stock shenanigan kind of 18xx feel.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's the kind. It's a run good company 18xx,
which I think Lonnie's games tend to be. Like 1880 and 1844 are pretty much similar to that too.
Another nice thing about this, and I want to mention this, is the box is really small.
Oh god, yeah, and that thing's packed too.
Yep.
I managed to get everything sleeved and in there, but yeah, there is no room to spare, man. and it does come with your requisite pack of paper money.
Sweet. That you'll never use.
I will never. I don't know. I got a little thing of like mini poker chips. If I really need it, I'll bring it around. So, but
I think that's something safe for you to always have in your game bag, Andy.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah. Anyway, this one I really want to get to the table. So that's 18 Lilliput. Alrighty. Well, I think that is a wrap, guys. Hopefully, I didn't do too bad at it. We'd just like to say goodnight, everyone. And to everyone that was in the live chat and joined us online, as well as those listening in the future. Once again, another shout out to go visit Game Surplus for those holiday sales coming up. I'm sure Carmen would appreciate the business. Anyway, that's it for tonight's episode of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. Once again, I've been your host for tonight, Andrew Dennison, joined by...
Trent Ham.
And TC.
Hey. TC. Night, guys.
Night.